Hello everyone, this is Cardmates, and today we present a new video. No poker player does not face difficulties during the beginning of his career. These difficulties are different, but among them there is one of the most common, a lack of aggression in the game. Some of the players mistakenly think that aggression in poker and in life is the same thing, and that to show aggressive play, you need to be a man with balls of steel. When you ask them if they could play more aggressively if they saw the opponent's whole cards and the heads up, in this case, they say yes. The point here is not that these poker players are not real men, but that their opponent's hand reading is poorly developed. If the villain outplays you on this part, then you have little chance of winning. You need to work on your hand reading skills and improve your abilities. The strongest player from all over the world laboriously work on this aspect and achieve great success. Negreanu is one of the best poker players of our time, but you can choose your approach to his game, which will allow you to beat him. Negreanu is a master at adapting to his opponents, but with a 10 big blind stack against him, even a well-trained amateur has a chance. But it's essential to be well prepared because if you practice a lot with 10 big blind stack, you can beat anyone. This is because you will know which hands to call with, which to raise, and which to fold in this particular situation. You may ask, how can I become a tough poker player just with a knowledge of 10 big blind stack play? There are many things you can work on to improve your game. There is one exercise to help you to improve it. Try to be the best player button against cutoff at your limit. This means that when the cutoff is in the pot and you are on the button, you need to win the most money. Let's say you can value bet, fold, and choose your hands a little better. But once you move higher in stakes, you will face more vigorous opponents. Do you have a plan on how to beat them? For example, there is a poker player who plays the best on the post flop at your limit, but he has problems with the pre-flop. Then you can become the best player on the pre-flop, and your chances of winning will increase significantly. Pre-flop game with stacks of 10 big blinds is quite simple and is convenient to train in different situations to be successful. If you work more pre-flop than your opponent in this example, you will be stronger than him. Over time, he will notice this and understand that you are beating him in this aspect. But for a while, you will have a great advantage in terms of the pre-flop game. And even when the most successful player at your limit notices it, you can keep beating the other poker players at your limit. The mere thought that you are better than Daniel Negreanu on the pre-flop is already inspiring you. This will give you a ton of confidence when playing against weak opponents. After you become the best poker player, consider becoming the best streeted boarded player. In this case, when a streeted board appears, you will dominate your opponents. You can play relatively average on other boards, but when the flop is of the same suit, you have everything needed to make the right decision. After analyzing this game situation, the math is on your side, as are the odds of winning. Then you can become the best player on a dry board. If the flop comes out Ace, 7, 2, or Queen, 8, 3, you will play perfectly in this game, since you have already trained in this situation many times and know how to get out of it as a winner. I want you to imagine the situation like this. This process is very similar to the training of an athlete in the gym. Today he will work on his chest, tomorrow on his legs, and the day after tomorrow on his arms. Over time, by improving every part of his body, he can become a real athlete who has developed all muscle groups. World-class players work through a huge variety of situations that a poker player can get into. And in these situations, they emerge victorious because they know the keys to solving the problem. They continuously keep working on their game and fixing leaks in it. If you stop this work, then your rivals will immediately bypass you, and you will immediately cease to be the best. Become the best player on the button, become the best on the cutoff, the big blind, the small blind, and so on. Position in poker plays a very important role, and you yourself know that. There is one useful exercise you can do to help you consolidate what you have learned. So right now, get a pencil and a piece of paper. The exercise is: think about where your game has leaks. Make a list of your poker leaks and work on each one separately each week. Work until you feel comfortable in certain situations. I am 100% sure that this exercise will help you to find the right leaks and to become a better poker player. If you have noticed some successful moves of strong players, then there is nothing shameful about copying them. Imitating someone is a sign of respect for the successful game and strategy. If a fish bets 1/10 of the pot on the river, then you don't have to puzzle over why he did that. Most likely, there is no logic in his action, and he did it just because he wanted to do so. But if Phil Hellmuth bets 1/10 of the pot on the river, then you should immediately think about why he did it. Hellmuth is a world-class player with 15 World Series of Poker gold bracelets, and he doesn't do anything without a purpose. If he made a bet in a pot of an unusual size, then this is a definite move, and it means something. The theory doesn't mean anything if you don't put your knowledge into practice. It will be useful to save hands with famous poker pros to see some patterns in their play. You don't have to copy Hellmuth or Ive. I'm sure that your limits have their strong players with unusual moves that will help you win. Find out what are they doing to make your play bad after their moves. For example, if a player always raises against your c-bet on a certain board structure and forces you to fold and keep doing it over and over again, and there is no way you can handle it, why not use this move against another opponent? It is also helpful to keep an eye on the top players at your limit and find their hand histories. There is a secret hidden in this history, thanks to which you will understand why they are crushing their limit and you're not. Poker hands history is a very important component. Many poker players hunt for it and study it very carefully. If you can't figure out how to use this in your game, then hire a coach or someone to help you to do it. Pick a player who is playing better than you and see how he plays his hands against you. So the main question would be, why is your opponent playing this way? There is no one trick with which you can piss off your opponent. Please choose one of the participants of the poker table and constantly annoy him with active actions. Sooner or later, he will go on tilt and start making a lot of mistakes that will lead to the loss of his money. Sometimes an opponent may constantly 3-bet you from the late position. You will be responding to his 3-bets, since he cannot have consistently strong hands. In fact, he's just taking advantage of your emotional stability and the fact that you are on tilt. The chances are low that your opponent only raises for value. So this player quickly realized that he needed to 3-bet the hands that dominate your calling range and then play them aggressively post-flop. How were you supposed to play in the situation? One way is to decrease the size of the open raise so that the stack to pot radius deeper. It will be more difficult for him to complete the hand on 2 streets by continuation bet and all-in on the turn in such a situation. By reducing the open raise, you could play the river more often in position. If he wants to go to the war of variance, then okay, why not? The best strategy would be to fold more often and 4-bet only with monster hands in this particular case. This is how you can adjust by folding most of your weak hands. You need to understand how opponents play against you and what they think about you. Their actions are almost always aimed to exploiting the leaks in your game. In a situation with a constant 3-bet, you were annoyed that you were the chosen one. If you want to stop his attempts to 3-bet you, you have to prove him that he loses money when he stays with you in the heads-up. Let's look at a few situations in which analysis can help you understand how your opponent perceives your play. When you bet the river and get an instant call from a hand that is far from the nuts, it gives you a great opportunity to learn your game. Chances are, the size of your bet And the time you spend thinking about your moves gave the player an idea of your hand range. Given your opponent's quickly call on the river, you can assume that you gave him some kinds of reads on the turn or flop. In this case, you should look at your hand history and understand how your opponent reads your hand. This can be a serious leak due to which many other poker players can beat you. Also, you shouldn't make a quickly call with the nuts on the river yourself. Why provide the enemy with important information that he's better off not knowing? If your opponent can't hold back, then exploit him again and again. If you are always faced with a big bet from your opponent on the river, he assumes that you either call very often or fold too much. If he has a monster, then apparently he always plays good hands like that, since he takes you for a call-in station. If he's bluffing, it means that you often fold on the river. In order to consolidate this information, try the following exercise. The exercise. Think of all the players against whom you were uncomfortable playing at the table. List them and analyze in detail the situation in which they bring you trouble. Think about any special strategy that you will use when playing against your opponents. Player profile. It happens that players have some problems with certain poker opponents, but they don't understand why. Their opponents play very straightforwardly, but the issue still arises. In this case, try to create a Word document called Player Profile. This text document describes your opponent's play, bluffs, and figuring out how to beat him. This work will allow you to look at your opponent's play on a deeper level and help you think without emotions. Perhaps later, it turns out that your opponent was not bluffing against you at all in this situation, but was simply playing strong hands in an aggressive style. There is a specific set of poker lines to play, so this will allow you to see which hands are in his range. The next time this player meets you at the table, you can surprise him. It can be exhausting at times, but it's fun when you are analyzing the image of a particular player. Find a regular player at your limit and study his game day after day. Study the 5 players of the limit and let your friends do the same. In this case, you can become the winner of your limit and dominate it. Poker becomes a lot easier when you know how your opponent understands your game. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the button and subscribe to our channel. If you have more questions, please go to our website, cardmates.net. See you soon!